Welcome everyone to the Co-Creators Convergence Thursday night Creator Convo. I'm Noelle Marshall and I'm here with my beloved.
Good evening, everyone. Bob Warner here. We are so delighted to have Olivia bring Brian into our community as a conversationalist this evening. Very, very excited. Brian, thank you so much for spending the evening with us. Really looking forward to the conversation. Thanks, everyone, in Timeless Time, with us in the Zoom room, with us on Facebook, with us on an archived recording in the future, because there's no such thing as time. I'm glad you're all here.
Thank you, Bob. And yes, I'm excited to have both Olivia Cheever, Brian Russo, and our topic tonight is co-creating new earth through unitive consciousness. So it's very exciting. There's a lot of new news, as Barbara Marx Hubbard would always say. And I watched, we'll get to that in a little bit. So right now, what I want to do is welcome all of you here. We're here every Thursday night with another exciting guest. And I want to tell you a little bit about the Co-Creators Convergence and then the other talks and events that we have coming up. So please stand by. So that is a little bit about the Co-Creators Convergence, and you are all welcome here every Thursday night. And this recording will be available if you have to leave or you want to watch it again, because I know it's going to be that good. So before Olivia introduces Brian, I want to tell you a little bit about our host for tonight. Oh, my good friend, fellow meditator, just wonderful traveling companion as well, Olivia Cheever. Dr. Olivia Cheever is an evolutionary peacemaking coach. She is a longtime student of Cherokee Talachi Yawahu ancestral lineage holder and Buddhist Khandro, the Venerable Dhyani Wayahu, founder of the Sunray Meditation Society and Peace Village Land Trust, a UN NGO and retreat center dedicated to world peace and reconciliation. Olivia serves on the board of the Council of Trustees with the Peace Village. She is a Harvard-trained therapist, embodied leadership coach, and professor. Olivia has helped diverse individuals, groups, and leaders to heal from trauma and to develop tools for stress management and collaboration. Since stepping back from serving as faculty at the Longy School of Music of Bard College and Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts, her passion is to join with others in bringing peacemaker and unitive consciousness to individuals and groups. So Olivia, we are so grateful that you have brought one of your compatriots, evolutionary leader, Brian Russo, here tonight. So without any further ado and mispronouncing anything else, I'm going to turn it over to you, Olivia, and welcome everyone. We just ask that you stay muted and you can turn on or off your video, it doesn't matter. But if you have any questions or comments, put them in the chat. And then Brian and Olivia are going to save 20 to 30 minutes for conversations at the end. So thank you everyone for coming, and see you next Thursday.
Thank you, Noelle. It's a real pleasure with you and Bob to welcome all of you on Zoom and on Facebook and introduce my friend and colleague, Brian Russo, to share his thoughts on unitive consciousness with the rise of the new earth. Brian is an evolutionary leader, a teacher of young people, an author involved with holistic organizations such as the Holo Movement and the Council of the Eagle and the Condor, among others, all working for regeneration of Mother Earth and collective evolution where everyone matters. Brian holds a BA in Political Science and Religious Studies from Colby College and a Master of Education from UMass Lowell. Brian is also a longtime student of the Venerable Dhani Wahu, founder and spiritual director of the Sunray Meditation Society and Peace Village, a UN NGO and retreat center dedicated to world peace and reconciliation based in Lincoln, Vermont. Sunray offers in-person and online events to bring people together to experience unitive consciousness or oneness firsthand in harmony with each other and Mother Earth. Many today are talking about the need for relating to one another as one on our divided planet. What does this mean in our individual and collective lives? How do we live together in harmony? Brian will share examples from his own extensive experience and then invite us to join in with what promises to be a lively Q&A with this timely topic. Brian is also an accomplished musician and sound healer. I met Brian when we both were taking a class with Venerable Dhani, where he was invited by Venerable to play for us on his crystal bowls. Unfortunately, we're not able to figure out a way to bring his music to you on Zoom tonight, but he's going to hold up his beautiful crystal harp so you can see what we're talking about. To help us center, before Brian begins, I have the pleasure to share with you a short video showing another artist friend and colleague, Linda DeHart's Wings of the Heart. My husband Richard and I had a chance in April to join with Linda and others making these flags of one family, or wings, at Barbara Thorngren's Peaceworks, New Hampshire, beautiful Avalon Art Barn and Sanctuary in Temple, New Hampshire. First, to center, we will enjoy this special 3-minute video transformance co-created by Gary Malkin and Sarah McCrum, especially for Linda's Flags of One Family. Then, Brian will start this conversation for 30 to 45 minutes, followed by a Q&A where we hope you will all join in. Now sit back and relax. We invite you to experience how these flags or wings of the heart are a wonderful way to co-create unitive consciousness together. Thank you, Noelle, for putting the video on.
You are invited to experience unity. It's time to put aside the differences that divide us. And embrace the beauty of each one of us being different, being unique, being ourselves. In the essence of who we truly are. A beautiful array of human beings across the planet. So many different ways of being human. So let us get to know each other. Let's spend time with each other. Let's learn from each other. And let's open our hearts to each other. And let's find the unity that exists right in the middle of the richness of our diversity. We are human. We are unique. We are one.
Thank you, Noel. Take it away, Brian. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Here we go. Thank you for being here with me. I see a lot of friendly faces out there, which makes me super happy. And you guys make my heart beat. So I hope that we just start in this moment of gratitude and just feel our hearts and feel the love, because this is what it has been about. This is what it will be about, and ultimately, it's where we're from and where we're going. So really, without further ado, I'm just gonna jump right in and let's see where we go. Would you look at that? It feels good, doesn't it? Harmonia Gaia. Where does something like that come from? You know, I never really thought about it until about 5 or 6 days ago, until I met a new friend, Ama, and I was telling her about my talk in Unitive Consciousness, this idea that we could all be at this higher level of consciousness together, and that would allow us to achieve our dreams at the next level. And she says, "Oh yeah, I have a film about that. It's Harmonia. It's this, it's a superorganism, you know, that we are, that when we're in this state, in our minds and our hearts are coordinating and we're working together, we're just on the same wavelength, we're on the same vibe." And I said, "That's great." So we partnered up, and that's how Harmonia Gaia was there. And the Gaia part of it is simply that our Earth or Gaia or Terra, whatever name you want to go by, we are evolving with Gaia, right? And it's not so wild a hypothesis when you go back to Lovelock's Gaia hypothesis, or of course, Dr. Jude Currivan's A Story of Gaia. But really, in terms of inviting humanity into harmonia or any other expression of collective consciousness that I believe is the golden innovation that brings us to that next level, is starting with a story. And of course, this is Co-Creators Convergence, and I'm with all these beautiful co-creators right now. And we just take a moment. You know, I'm writing a chapter of a book with some fellow co-creators on Barbara and her legacy. And this is a continuation of that. And I think that's what evolution is. It's taking what works and it's continuing it because it's doing beautiful things. So let's keep creating and keep on telling this sacred story of creation at the next level. So what's going on here? We see a holon, and maybe we've heard of these words before, right? For example, if you have a part and that's part of a larger whole, that is a holon, because then that larger whole is also part of something big. And you can look at the graphic and we can all say, okay, we know about holons. So why do we use this word to really dive into what this exploration of unitive consciousness or harmony is all about. Because it really has to do with emergence and has to know that evolution is always creating. And it does so through us. We're intelligent beings, and we get to use our consciousness in this very moment as you're interacting with me and so on and so forth. And we can see new things form, just like that first time that hydrogen and water came together and it stabilized as water, and well, it stuck and life took off. So holons themselves are quite a beautiful way of seeing how everything is one. And indeed, even when we look at a cell and we think of how ribosomes work, it's really a prior unity. You don't really have a part create a whole, do you? It all comes from a prior whole, which is the cosmos holon or source holon. And that is also the great mystery. So we see, you're looking at the screen right now, and we're seeing all these patterns. But really, even when we're not looking at these cymatics, which of course are forms of different molecules or atoms when we see them vibrationally, even when we're normally looking at anything, we're just seeing the pattern form as that arises in spacetime. And when we look at how these holons work to create ever more complex versions of life, because again, as the information content to the universe increases over time, we do have these more complex organisms. And this is where we're at. We're individuals, we've individuated, but we're ready. We're ready for something new. And I think humanity's going to like it. So this is it, really. Jude says that we're individuated, self-aware expressions of the continuous flow of the universe, and we are microcosmic co-creators. So if we look at the bigger picture, right? Because as we become more conscious, well, we're conscious of more. We can perceive realities beyond the physical world, indeed quite far beyond them. And it's about how do we develop that capacity together. My friend Nish Dubashia, who interviewed David Bohm today, he says, what we really need is just to deepen our consciousness. And that's a thesis right there. Just become more conscious of your relationship with everything. And man, this world is going to take off. All the stuff, right? Like we saw those cymatic patterns, all these patterns of disharmony. That's the whole idea here, is from individuation, from oneness where we started off to becoming these amazing individuals we are. We're ready to reintegrate in a sense to source, but doing so in a sense that we're able to make use of these higher forms of consciousness to affect our world in a positive way. So Jude calls this really a whole vibrational spectrum of multidimensional consciousness. And as you'll soon figure out, like with talking about a hologram, there we are. When we talk about a hologram, is that every sensory moment that we're looking at something, we're picking up some information, and that's feeding back to us, and it's telling us something about what's going on. So really multidimensional consciousness, we don't have to oversimplify it. But at the same time, it is about being aware of many different things at the same time, yet totally present right here, so that you can use all of that to actually do something with it, to make it functional. This is a picture of the overtone series. And what we're going to do at the beginning is really dive into the cosmology of harmony, because everything is at least in the electromagnetic spectrum, it's a waveform. And these waveforms, they are essentially vibrating or pulsating at a certain rate. And all this can be explained harmonically. And indeed, when we have and that's because the universe is quantized. If we have ratios that aren't perfect like this, partials, those basically, not that they can't exist, but they're the noise. And everything we hear as harmonic, that is falling within the beauty of the harmonic series. And I will pause here and again, bring out a beautiful tiger's eye bowl that will not translate over the Zoom for you to hear, but I assure you it sounds beautiful. And what this does when I sound this bowl, and I'm also playing another bowl, is that creates the interval, right? So we can think of different energies essentially working with each other to create these standing wave patterns. And that is us, as Carl Sagan says, we're star stuff. We are these standing wave patterns and a whole lot more. So again, as we dive into evolution itself, and there's a direction to that, we are writing the next chapter of the story of Gaia. We are Gaia's children, and we're also called to be Gaia's guardians. I think as Uncle Ben from Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. So if you're conscious, really, we have to protect the waters. We have to protect the land. Even from a logical sense, if you are not doing that, then look at the environmental sustainability of that, or even economic viability of that. So, at every level, the way we're interacting with Earth and saying that she's a material thing or she's just a resource instead of a version of source herself, we're really just in that state of disconnection and separation. And we've all heard this before, because that's essentially when we run the computer diagnostic is the issue, because we really have lost touch with our sense of unity consciousness and the fact that we're all, just expressions on this continuum, and just going along this theme of harmonics and how every level of reality is one solid, sometimes solid, sometimes not, but a flowing state of being, right? That this is all explained by the mathematics of this cosmic hologram we're in, this grid. And the Greeks understood it. They saw the coherence in that. But imagine what would happen if, we were nihilists and we didn't believe there was any intrinsic meaning in the universe, and we decided to create with that energy. Well, that's what we will create, because we have the will to do it. So the alternative here is to co-create with the larger creation in a way that's going to make just everything pop. So here we are at holograms. So I've been talking about holograms for over a decade and figuring out what's the best way to talk about them. And the traditional way is to sort of say, okay, you have a laser in a lab and it hits this beam splitter, it goes off a mirror, it gets kind of a picture of the background. That's called the reference beam. That sort of gives us a picture of the slice of reality we're talking about. And then we take an object and we get that object to reflect off that holographic film, such that when we look at that holographic film, we're seeing an image. So take a flashlight, put it under the holographic plate, you get a 3D image. Now, what's the interesting thing about holograms, you might ask? Well, if you cut out 99% of that hologram and still shine it under that one single piece, what will happen? You are going to see the image, although it will be more blurry than if you had the whole hologram. And indeed, you can think of every slideshow that I'm showing you as a piece, not of the hologram even. I mean, of course it is, everything is, but of what I'm talking about, of this harmony, of this unitive consciousness, where all of these are holographic breadcrumbs that are leading us to something really special, something I think is the next level of human evolution. So even as you look to the night sky and look to the stars, and no matter where you stand, right, in that 3D picture of space-time, we're still seeing those same stars from a slightly different vantage point. And that's what led Marshall Lefferts, who wrote the book Cosmometry, to say that it's really great to just understand this field that we're in of universal reality itself as the hologram. So rather than getting, I'm sure if some of you, this might be your first time around the explanation of a hologram, you don't need to get caught up in it. But the idea is just to remember that information is accessible at any point. From this point to that point to that point, the whole field pervades it, right? So when we talk about how people are able to download information and get information that seems, outside of things, then it's because they're able to tap in to this holographic aspect of the universe beyond what most people are able to do. So Jude talks about this, and she says, look, the appearance of the universe, all these non-physical realms, they're intelligent at this level of causation, and it's informing patterns. And these attractive patterns, you could call it the strong force, the weak force, go all over the physics with it, but this creates the template in which energy matter is manifested. And some people call that the explicate order. You could think of it like that, an implicate order that unfolds into the explicate, but sort of beyond that space is that idea. Think about Plato, right? The realm of the ideal. All of these kind of just numbers, right? That don't necessarily show up as anything. And then suddenly, wow, there it is. So that's sort of the mind of the cosmos at work in terms of how that gets set up and then creates coherence. The structure of space-time itself is literally vector equilibrium, which I'm not going to go over into, but essentially, this explains why things take a shape the way they do. And we can see whether it's natural shapes of a hexagonal honeycomb, or we look at the spiral of a sunflower, and it has to do with the very smallest thing. And again, holons are parts that contain holes and vice versa. but this is as small as we go. We're at the Planck area information pixelation, which just think of it like if the universe was made up of little, energy grains of sand, everything are those. And if you think protons are big, which they're not, protons are super tiny, basically comparing one of these voxels or kind of spherical pixels to that, it would be like comparing the proton to the size of the universe. So the entire energy show, the whole universal structure and the way energy flows harmonically through it, all of that is this physics. It is informational, but again, information literally is real. It is energy matter. So all of that is that. I'm going to skip over all of this. You guys know this. You know that information is real and makes up the universe, but we can prove it. So again, we're looking at how this energy matter is actually information, and how just as entropy might start at the beginning of the big breath instead of the Big Bang, right? So does information. And as our universe physically expands, we are getting all of this information. And think about you some, 14 billion years downstream from all of this, where we have tremendous intrinsic intelligence within us, yet we have this capacity of learning how to learn. And that's what's able to create the connections beyond the mere nervous system connections of it's too hot or it's too cold, to literally sensing those higher realms of experience. And, Dwayne Elgin writes about this and brings it right down to earth, which is where it belongs, right? A functioning collective consciousness. Okay. And we see it in classrooms, we see it in organizations, we see it in communities. Ken Wilber called these social holons. We see them everywhere. So if we take that, again, as a structuring block of society and say, well, what does that whole thing look like when it's at higher consciousness, or when it's in peak performance, or when everyone really understands each other in that group and they're able to create synergy, something greater than the sum of its parts? Well, it's the answer to all of our problems. Just look at these starlings, right? The problem is with humans, perhaps, is you say, okay, what do you want for lunch? And you'll get a million different answers, right? So we can still have that. We just need somebody really good to take that order. And this is the great book. Get this book, The Return of Collective Intelligence. Derry Dyer, a dear who's passed away, but gives all of the kind of the history of how indigenous peoples have known this and passed this down to us. So not only are we rediscovering our indigenous knowledge, but we're also applying this to the modern innovations, which gets me really excited for what I'm about to share with you now. We could go through what Dr. John Lilly describes as the way reality programs up, or metaprogramming, where as we go up from the atom to the cell, and then really beyond the organs into the brain itself, into the reptilian brain, we literally then, have the neo-mammalian brain form out of that, a neocortex form out of that. So literally the top dog, what is in the control mechanism, right? Kind of like the thalamus mixed up with the rest of the neocortex, it's allowing all those other lower functions to go on autopilot, right? Just think if you were in a group and all the stuff that, not that you don't like to do, but you could just put that on autopilot. So you could just do what you want to do. And that's time freedom. And for me, that's harmonia. I just want to sing every day and be with my family and love life and, maybe change the world. Definitely change the world. But that's it. I mean, this is a state. It's a frequency. I didn't put Manfred Klein's into this presentation, but Manfred Klein's, he shows centric waves. If I put a galvanic skin response monitor on your finger and, you're everyone around the world, any continent, right, they will show the same sort of vibrational sinusoidal wave reaction to fear, to happiness, to anguish, to joy. So we're showing that we have a similar way of being, a similar way of vibrating. And that is really what harmony is all about. It's about a resonant space, and we'll see what's possible because it's emergent, right? This thing's being bootstrapped. So that is what the next level is. It's understanding that we're able now to work together as a functional unitive consciousness, collective consciousness, group consciousness, name, doesn't matter as much, to be able to have a leverage on whole systems that people aren't able to have before, because they're not operating at this level of the new keystone species, where we're able to really let our heart desire guide us in what we want to create. Now, this is a pretty heavy image, so I'm just going to fast right on forward through that. But if you looked at it for even a second, maybe you relate. Too much information, right? And if you look at this LOD cloud, which is just linked open data, you can see that there's a lot of information out there. And in fact, if you understand information doubling, you know that it's not going to let up anytime soon. So this is where our innovation comes in Unitive Consciousness, of learning how to think holographically. So again, metaprogramming, you have a neocortex, it's kind of running the show, right? What if you're able to be above that in a real heart-centered space and also have the capacity to organize information in a way that other people are organizing information so that it makes sense? And what if holons were a way to do that? So here it is. Welcome to Harmonia. Welcome to being in a state of unitive consciousness, because we don't have to do anything. You're already here, right? How easy was that? You just showed up and your heart's lit up, right? That's how you know it's real. So what happens now that you're here? Well, as far as, an architectural point, we are the architecture. We are literally, came down here into this life to be the light, to be the joy, to be the love, to shine into this hologram, to illuminate everything so that everyone can know that light inside themselves. And the digital aspect of that, because again, it structures at every level, right? Just like the vector equilibrium structures reality at every scale, is that, we need a process that is going to create a structure that's able to fulfill everyone's dreams. It's as simple as that. So, Barbara had it figured out. This is the synergy engine process. It's getting people in that circle. Maybe, we pick an audience member. Maybe we can run this in the chat to give it some live action proof of process here. But anyway, if I used me, right, I put myself in the center of the circle and say, what do I need? I needed somebody that understand what I was talking about, because it turns out most people don't. So I ended up finding Ama and so many other people. But Ama was great because I was like, well, yeah, let's just do this. Like, this is going to really help humanity. So that was a need. And, giving freely within the database structure that I have for Harmonia, we just have a ton of information, not only about this stuff, but about anything somebody might be interested in. And really the key is how to navigate it, but we'll get there later. And then I kind of picture, there's different goods and services, right? What do you want to exchange? So within that flow, we're now seeing how it puts it into motion, because it's great to ask, hey, how can you help me? It's great when you're able to then freely give. And then that third turning there is then also, okay, well, I really took a long time to get good at this. So let's have an energy exchange for something you have that I want. And that starts creating the force. That creates the movement, so that when you realize and ask yourself, how is this helping the whole? Because to me, all this stuff, unless it's not helping everybody, why are we doing it? So then it's about being in that we space, connecting with people. And the last one is bringing more people in, fulfilling more dreams. And I think that this is possible. And I realized it just so happened to correlate with Ikigai, which is, of course, getting people into that space of what they love. And certainly, as far as I've, been co-designing and envisioning how all of this works out, we've incorporated something called my heart-based AI that my friend Jessa Grace, has created. And, some people are scared of AI. And I think that can definitely create some negative timelines. But the timeline I see with it is wonderful, because I can use a lot of different softwares that are all about person self-knowledge, and essentially, spit out a 30 or 40-page report on who they are. And that helps to orient them in the space, because being in a space of harmonia is all about that attunement. It's about that syntonic alignment with really knowing what your soul wants. And then you find the people that are there with you, and then you really can take that to the next level. That's where, as you go through the self-knowledge holons, or it's all in phases, right? You go through healing holons. You gotta unload those shadows to really get into that light, and then vocation. So really, as an educator, it's pretty great because I have so many different lessons to share, and it's structured in a way where these dynamics are always here. So not only can you develop a vocation within this, but get paid, So this brings us to teaming. I've studied with Tamsin. I've got to, really get to know what her work is about. And this is the super organism advantage. And Dwayne Elgin talks about this in terms of what the capacity is to do more with less, to do more faster. And indeed, as Tamsin says, it's living and growing value faster than any species has done, right? And again, just think of all the ego programs that say, oh, well, I want this boat or I need this new mansion, right? If we truly want world peace and want world unity and we give it everything we got, that's what we'll get. So, teaming in an ecosystem refers to how we are all able to sort of co-sense and co-make meaning together. So this sense-making and meaning-making process is then also where the threads of our unitive narrative, the threads of our stories start to align. And we just follow the patterns of nature, because whenever you're trying to design any system, nature knows how to do it. This is 4.2 billion years of R&D just on Earth that you're looking at for how do you move energy through a system. So in speaking to Harmonia, you're speaking to how can we really elevate to this next level and do so in the most efficacious manner possible. And there's a lot of reciprocity in that, because it's not just a JFK, what can you do for your country, but it's what are we doing for each other in a way that's making our hearts sing. And that's it. That's where the soul story started. I said, if you got lost somewhere between the pixelation of reality to we're all an hologram and blah, 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 people don't have to get that. People just have to understand that there's energy all around us. There's a sea of energy. And really, we can come into a state of heart coherence. We can use scientific medical devices to measure our state of heart coherence, right? Well, Mother Earth's got a heart too, right? So what does that mean when we're able to take that to the next level? And what we are looking at is not only the newest sphere, which this is, right? The sphere where we can be on that same level of mind, and we could go quite off the tangent on that, but we can coordinate. We can coordinate like no group of humans has in history. And part of that just begins with even showing people the model of a Gaia or a new Earth, and say, look at how far we've already gone. Look at all the sacred sites we're protecting. Look at all the regenerative ventures that are going on. And really, again, just in terms of all of you guys, like we're all each other's local mind here. You talk about non-local field, right? My wife's in the next room, but for the rest of you, you could be on the other side of the world. And here we are having this holographic experience where you're hearing my voice and seeing my picture. And this is it. So this to me is the reaching out. And I hope you guys Google this video, this reaching out, like the hand of Adam to God. And you're seeing those neurons connect. And it's like neurons that fire together, wire together. Now you have an understanding of the idea of what activates the noosphere, what keeps these memes, what keeps ideas like the wheel of co-creation, what keeps them generating, because they actually inform a culture that's able to take care of the earth and each other, which is something we've diverged from. And we see, and this is where it gets really awesome in terms of understanding the holographic capacity of your brain. I am going to pause myself on that too much, but it's literally the amount of neural synchronization that happens with that. Now we're talking telepathy. Now we're talking the next band of human evolution. But, when we don't have those connections, when we're separated, when we isolate, and we can do it to ourselves just by, programming our thoughts to say, I'm isolated and all this kind of stuff. We see all of these disease states or disharmony. So, health is wholeness, and the dis-ease state is out of a state of the natural ease and flow of everything. And that's what it is to be in this heart vibration. And what is it like for us to co-create a world where young children can be in this state, they can be on the land, they can go to Sunray Meditation Center, and they can in the Peace Village and put their feet on the ground and know that they're part of something greater, right? And that's it. It's this wheel of co-creation that provides the blueprint for that. And we see these different domains, and it's analogous to the social body. So here we see again this vector equilibrium structure. It's a 12th dimensional base mathematics. And it's like, if I put myself in there, I might think, okay, well, here's my relations to these things. But when you put a superorganism in there, now you can do something much more, right? Instead of saying, how am I going to get water? It's how do we get water? And that changes the whole thing, right? Because it's all about, in any given moment, whatever you put in the center of that circle, which is, or it's actually the center of the spiral, right? this is where that source energy, that knowing, that intuition, that connection from the non-local, the connection from the non-implicated, that's what pours in. So as much as I talk, it's really being in that silent state and taking it in and knowing that the guidance is there. And that's what Barbara did. She was able to bring hundreds of people together and stand in, a visual representation of this wheel and say, okay, somebody needs a monkey. This is a real story. I need a monkey to perform on the street because like I'm a hurdy-gurdy man. Oh, there's a person sitting over there that just so happens to rent out exotic animals for commercial shoots. And it works, right? So there's the miracle space. There's the synergy engine at play. And here's one of my children, the rainbow circle, because I have been focused on how do you create, visual or pictorial, infographics that are able to help people to make connections in their brain, to connect dots in ways they could never have imagined before. And those are just some of those keywords that I chose that sort of, it's like a clock, right? You start and you go around in a clockwise motion, and it's really just understanding that you can correspond all layers of things, whether it's groups of, again, people in regenerative farming or people in new economics, right? I just graph them to the circle because just as, the neuron in my mind, I like to say that we're all neurons in the mind of God. We're, the cosmos is a thought, and it's also a feeling of love. So as we start to make these correlations between the different organs of the body, we get what Barbara calls universal humanity, that this is the body. So all of the different, rainbow circles, which at this point, I guess they're just hold-ons, right? I built them out so that they kind of all together, they are reflecting that world that activates our collective vision. Think about that. Every one of them is doing something, and they all are nested in each other because nested concepts in these are able to relate to each other. So it's a little William James joke of turtles all the way down because it's a hologram all the way down and up and left and right. So it's about how do we reflect these different expressions of information with each other to grow in a way that we understand. So, harmonia, the name, harmony is the attractor, right? It's a state where everybody's in this wonderful state of attunement to that universal impulse of what wants to be. It's emergent. We don't know. It's cool. Let's go with it, right? Instead of trying to be perfect, here I am making this entire slideshow today, right after teaching and just going with it. So the holonic structuring, when people are, because again, harmonia, right? Yes, it could be a digital structure and you could see it on the website, but this is energetic architecture. You are in it right now, right? Anytime we're vacuuming or we're laughing or whatever, right? It's a frequency of joy and love and harmony, and creating a digital interface where people can access that more easily. That's what lights me up. And I want to pause here because just today, or a few days ago, Terrence Howard, who is an actor, was on Joe Rogan, and he was talking about multidimensional experiences. And just to be vulnerable and personal for a moment, you might wonder, it's not easy being multidimensional in a three-dimensional world, but it's not. It's just that if you have a bunch of people that are, in that way of thinking, and it's nothing down or against them, it's like we've all been programmed that way, it can be difficult. Right. So having people like Terrence Howard step up and, he's a well-known guy and just say, look, I have multidimensional experiences. I'll have a dream as a kid where I remember what it was like in my mother's womb. I'll have an experience where I went into a mansion in my dream and I met a being there and I got to ask a question. And I said, show me how the universe works. And he did, or it did. And you guys want to know the proof of that is this guy says he has over 99 patents, right? And he said, it's like waking up with a diamond, right? It's not in your hand, right? Can't see it. Where's the diamond? But for me, that's my experience of multidimensional consciousness, going into it with a pure intention to say, how can we end this suffering? How can we end it soon? And I think the answer is through being in harmony, through being in unitive consciousness. That's my gem. So I'm going to just share some hold-ons in the cosmic hologram, some beings that really, express this. And this is one of my great friends, Sherry Herndon. So she has a website, awakeningtogether.one. Watch her podcast. It's all wonderful. And here is this beautiful picture of art. Art is so activating, and it is showing this connection, right? We're using art to represent what it is like to be so resonant that it just literally lights us up. And, Sherry and I, we wrote the 4th chapter of the Hall Movement book. The Hall Movement Wave is happening today in Ibiza. I hope, somehow this makes it to him, and just love to all my family there, because this chapter was on how do you design a holo movement, right? A movement of the whole. And the answer is it's already happening. And people, based on whatever level of consciousness they're at, will try to coordinate to move it in a way that's going to generate the outcomes they want. So personally, where I'm at, I support what everybody's doing. I'm just trying to support that movement in the way that is most intuitive to me. Kristen Hoffman, listen to Rain Shine. Music is the answer. We're literally getting, just as the auroras are filling us with light, or the all of this solar flare activity, as Susan Manowich could tell us, that this music, right? We're feeling that music, and it is activating us. It is helping us to remember at a soul level who we are. So much love to Kristen. And my friend Lauren, Lauren, if you're going to watch this now or later, I think later, you were just the best. And we were born on the same birthday. I think there's a whole connection there. And we've been friends ever since we lived in a monastery in India for 6 months. So check her out, little_whale_music, or just go Little Whale at Bandcamp. I just have all the love for Lauren. And, as I'm saying this too, I realize that in my last minute of putting this together, I did not make a slide for my wife. So apologies in advance, because you have the biggest slide. And my mom, who's watching, there is not a hologram big enough to contain your love and the love I have for you. So speaking of Susans, this is my friend Susan, who's on here, and I'm going to invite her to speak as well. But oh my gosh, just talk about somebody that shines so bright that the whole world gets a little brighter. This is also the secrets of how to use our energy, right? And I like to say that Unitive Consciousness and Harmonia, that just as separating atoms created a nuclear fission and led to a nuclear bomb, that when we are able to organize at this level to be this super coherent, that's the level of the peace bomb, BALM, because that is the true peacemaker tool. Is that when we are all in that state together, simply the disharmony cannot be. That's frequency for you. And definitely last but not least, I've been working with Dr. Mindahi for the past year and a half at least, and I just have so much love for everything he's doing. So I can speak to that more later, but this is about how are we around sacred sites. This has a lot to do with what's happening at Sunray Peace Village, and I just have all the love in the world for the indigenous practices that Dr. Mindahi is bringing forth that are truly having a profound effect on how planetary healing is occurring, and I hope just everybody feels that. And I just threw this in because let's all hold hands. And when this is really successful, right, come back to this moment and just see us now, 2 years in the future, however long it takes, right? There's going to be a moment where we're all holding hands in the world and just singing because we all remembered our unity, right? Why not? All right. So this is towards the end now. This is the Elders and Youth Gathering. It's coming up. I'm working on the promotions committee for it. This is the 40th anniversary. Venerable Diani Wahu, the chief of the Green Mountain Aniyanwiwa and Sunray Meditation Society in Peace Village, an absolute just legend, just an awesome being. I have so much love in my heart for Venerable. Oh my God. It's immense. It is just immense what she has been able to do to help the planet. And gosh, I hope you guys can join me July 26th to the 28th. We're gonna rock out. The elders are gonna come. Mayan elders dancing in a circle. We're doing drumming, we're singing the songs of peace. Good vibes of saving the world, So come. All right. So this is a nice turn in the story where I met Ama, who I've kind of referenced, and she had this, notion, and I shouldn't say notion. It's like just an energetic, expression of what harmony is. And I'm like, well, the last paper I wrote for a book on interspirituality was all about how we attune to harmony. And, wouldn't you know it, we became best friends within 6 days and launched this website, Harmonia Gaia. I mean, when you know your friends, you know your friends. And I'll leave it with this beautiful image for one moment. And gosh, you guys, I'm a teacher. I know what it's like to hear somebody lecture. And no, I love it. I do. But let's take a moment. Let's just take a moment to tune in to all of that.
Thank you, Brian. I think that was a true symphony that you gave us with some improvisation. Thank you so much. And I have a question. I'd like to, if you're ready to kick off the Q&A. And you mentioned the Sunray Meditation Society and Peace Village, and we actually have some people from our Sunray family here who are co-creating this another 40th anniversary of our Elders and Youth Gathering. And my question is this: you're talking about many examples of unitive consciousness, but how do we get there? And you are talking about how you've experienced that with Venerable Tahani and with the elders and that kind of thing. And I know you've also mentioned Madahi and other, actually he's coming to our peace gathering this summer. Could you say a little bit more in terms of, you were talking about how youth can come there and put their feet in the land.
Sure. Yeah,
Kind
absolutely.
of bring it down to embodying, I'm a somatic
I think
person.
after all that, we could do with a round of embodiment. And I did want to elaborate more on that. So I'm glad we're doing this now. So when you get onto the land, right, it feels different. And that tells us something when we enter a space where things just feel more harmonious, right? We have a spring in our step. We have that extra smile, right? So I think that's really important to know, that this whole world creates various degrees of harmonic fields. And we can always, like Dorothy, clap your feet and clap your red ruby slippers and get to that. But it's really special. It's really special. And when you go to the arbor, which is a circle of these cedar pylons, and you enter it in a specific way, and there's ritual around it, it entrains us. It puts us into a shared space where we're honoring the directions. We are honoring each other. We are doing dances and songs in the arbor. And this, from a frequency level, singing the same songs, getting into the same state of heart coherence, of being on that same wavelength of mind, that we just feel the coherence. Everything's good. You remember that everything is magic, right? Nature is a magical thing. It's a great mystery that never ceases to surprise. And I think what Sunray has done is it's created a really strong culture that has that resonance, that has those practices, that when we go into those different sectors of the wheel and we say, how do they do health? How do we do, formation of community? What is the political structure? All of these things. And again, when we hold that holographically, we're saying, oh, they're all connected. Everything's about being in right relationship. And how do we walk around the wheel? How do we be in reciprocity? So I've just been the biggest, I haven't been the biggest, but I'm a really big supporter of everything that Sunray does. And I hope that everybody is able to make it out there this summer.
I think also just one more thing that you are emphasizing is there is a kind of coming together of science as well as
that is a huge part of it.
Right?
Yeah. So, Dr. Rudy Shield has spoken there in the past, and he also has written books about the quantum hologram, as he called it. And, we could talk a lot more about the structure of the universe, but, it all circles back to love anyway. And that's what Rudy also kind of understood, is that in bridging these very vast, cutting edge science, like we can look at the last Nobel Prize in science and with quantum physics, and that really aligns with quantum entanglement and how we're all connected at this deeper level. And then that starts to explain things we see in indigenous culture, like the ability to speak to the land, to speak to the waters. And again, we're speaking, right? People think, oh, that's strange, right? Only because we're disconnected from having remembered how to do that. So when we reconnect in spaces like those, there's a remembering. There's a remembering that we have always been connected. And I would say it's a homecoming, right? So and that's where we're at. We're at the special moment where that science is showing to be no different than true religion, true spirituality.
Mm. Noelle, can we invite people to ask questions now? Do you want
I'd love to just invite Ma to say a few words, or because you know, I'm so grateful to her for helping to put up our website yesterday, and just, you know, being as much of this as I am in what we're doing here.
Go ahead. If you can click on your mute. Yeah.
So I love the work. Well, first of all, Brian, you're an amazing teacher, just to start out with. You're just born to teach. So I wanted to just acknowledge. Can you hear me actually? Yeah. And we're talking about attunement and alignment and harmonics, and how when you've sensed your own self enough, you know who you are, who you could sense this beating pulse that I am. And when you come up with meeting other people such as you, there's a familiarity, there's an ease, there's an ability to trust and let go. And it's like these overlapping wave patterns that create like a third harmonic that I couldn't do by myself. You couldn't do by yourself, and all of a sudden something arises that is, I mean, truly emergent. Like it's something that I couldn't have had that thought if I hadn't talked to you. And we all kind of know like what that's like if we're playing music, like kind of riffing with jazz. But
Can I riff in?
like,
Can I riff in with you for a second?
Yeah,
so,
go for it.
So hemisync, which is all about how we can play different frequencies in the ears to give people experiences of the highest Zen meditator. Well, interestingly enough, when you do play binaural beats, let's say you're a beat from the left ear, I'm a beat from the right ear, they will actually do, in your brain, it will correct. It doesn't like the frequency differential. And in the caudate nucleus of the brain, it will form a third frequency. So, you know, that's the joy of our emergence, is getting to experience that third frequency that we never could have had it individually.
And we're learning how to do that with bigger and bigger groups, so that we're learning. That's what I see as the emergence of harmonia, is this like, okay, we take and we bring it into the next hold on, you know, the next form of consciousness. Like, what is it like when we all have done the work to be able to hold the intimacy necessary for meeting somebody as fast as I met you and say, okay, I can trust this because I know who I am and I can feel what trust feels like. And we all can do that. We all can drop into that. Then all of a sudden, interesting things start to pop. And I think we're playing around with what it means to be a new human, in the sense of what we're doing it as a superorganism. And that is just really exciting.
Well, I hope you can come on the co-creators convergence as well, because that, you know, pattern of the hologram, because that's what the holographic plate looks like. It looks like just a bunch of random sort of things, but then when you shine the light underneath it and you can actually share that pattern between you, that's the magic.
And I love the metaphor of the light. Yes, because we talk about, you know, what is it that we're receiving? What is it, you know, the implicit order? What is it we're uploading? What is it we're downloading? And we use the metaphor of light to see it all the time in esoteric art. You know, that this consciousness, that source coming in and informing what we're becoming.
Yeah, right on. Thank you, Emma.
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from the group here?
There was a question, it's more for a reference. Who is the author of Return to Consciousness?
That would be Derry Dyer. So she was actually for 40 years the editor of the Tico Times, which was a newspaper.
Tico Times in Costa Rica.
That's right.
Okay. Okay, does anyone else want to jump in with a question? There we go, Brian. Thank you for putting that in there. I want to say, Ma, I watched your movie today. It's on the new website. Highly recommend it. I thought it was the most coherent, you know, the way you built it up and explained things. It's the best explanation I've ever seen. You know,
Oh my
you
God.
get a little bit here, you get a little bit there, but how you, put that all together was absolutely, and then with the beautiful music in the background. So, folks,
Beauty has a high harmonic as well. So I love to bring many disparate thoughts, whether it's morphogenetic fields or holonic structure, and weave it all into what we're understanding is happening in our
I
consciousness.
actually missed that point. But Amma, would you like to tell everybody, just so for posterity in the recording, about the morphogenetic field that we're building here?
That's what this is, and you could see it like you showed, Brian, in the presentation, a flock of starlings. We're learning how to intentionally create these fields of intelligence and letting these new when you create a coherent field, more light, more intelligence can be uploaded or downloaded, because there's an attraction, like you said, the holonic attractor. There's an attractive quality. It's an electromagnetic field, if you want to use that analogy, that it's magnetic, and you can pull in more information, more intelligence than I can alone. That we get together and do this. It's a very different story, and that's fun.
Totally. And Dr. Caravan has this idea of horizontal meme transfer. So we see that different things out in nature can swap genes with each other. Oh, I need to, be a little less photoresistant or whatever it might be. Here, have my genes, right? Doesn't quite happen like that. But when we add memes to that, now we have a cultural unit of understanding, right? So it's like that's the sort of world that humans have built, right? So what are the memes of all this? Well, every image I showed you, right? Again, all of these themselves are serving kind of to form a space of understanding the field itself and how it is informed. Does that track?
And I think the understanding, which is why I built the film so sequentially and systematically, is that when you can see the overall structure, it gives you a platform from which to see the horizon, from which to see the new dawn that we're looking at. So the more clear we can be, like that's why I love all the things you brought into the structures that we're building. They amplify our altitude and what we're looking at, and also the perspective that we can see of what needs to change. We have a more broader perspective, where we can see things very clearly, sequentially. Anyway, it's called, Bride and I put together a website. It's called harmonia-gaia.com.
Yeah, it's in the chat. Thank you so much, Emma. I can't wait to see it. Anybody else, if you'd like to raise your hand on the reaction button, if you have a question, we can call on you because we don't see you. Carol, Sue, I see you.
You knew I would put my hand up.
Welcome. Great to see you here.
Thank you. I am so impressed. And Brian, every time when I see you, I am always so impressed. How is this young guy so brilliant? And how old are you?
Well, I'm getting younger every year, Carol Sue. But
It looks like it.
You must know just 34.
Younger than my daughter, and I'm just so impressed. And you had mentioned so many things that I thought, wow, maybe we should have that part of Earth stock. Maybe we should have that part of Earth stock. So are you familiar with Earth stock yet?
You heard about that, Brian?
That's Michael DiMartino's festival. It's not a festival, it's a summit. It's August 19th to the 25th. It's going to end in drumming around the world, but it's about the indigenous women coming together to heal the earth. And I saw you mentioned a few people that I thought would be very appropriate for this, including yourself. And so I want you to we're on deadline for the speakers for the main headliners. So it's kind of like now or never.
Well, my answer is always now.
Yeah. Oh, good.
There are a number of others within this community that we definitely like. Susan Stark Christensen, and who did a documentary on wisdom of the women elders, and that we want to make sure she's aware of this event coming. Thank you.
Great.
Beautiful. Does anyone else want to have a question or a comment for Brian or Olivia or Amma?
Let me ask if much of what both of you have talked about, and the energy, the love, the connection are the things that we've experienced at Co-Creators Convergence in our annual gathering in person. Very much so. Our 11th annual event was just this last year in Costa Rica, and we have that energy, that feeling, and that if there's 22 of us, there's really 23 of us, because there's 22, and then there's what is the collective for the whole time that we're together. Absolutely, absolutely beautiful. I wanted to ask you logistics question. Are you aware of, and are you signed up to be a participant in World Unity Week this next month, June 15th through 22? Because what you shared with us this evening, an even bigger audience, Linda and Olivia and a number of others here are very familiar with the annual World Unity Week. And
So I can speak to
fantastic
that.
time.
Yeah, I've participated in World Unity Week for the last couple years, and
Oh, okay.
I just haven't reached out to Ben yet. So perhaps I may just use this as our stock reel, because I think we could both present during World Unity Week, and that would be awesome, because as we look into the technicalities of what actually constitutes, a minimum viable superorganism, just like you'd have a minimum viable product, we start to get really into the possibilities of seeing how those next steps unfold. And that's what I'm really excited to see. And I know that World Unity Week would be one of those experiences that would bring more people into that fold to experience what we're bringing to the table here.
Absolutely. And we, for the first 3 years, Co-Creators Convergence had its own convergence room within World Unity Week. And one of the years, we did all 7 days, we had a film festival in the evening. So we had a movie, and the writer or director or whomever was there for after talk after seeing the movie. So, wow, what an excellent opportunity that would be. We're not quite sure what our involvement is going to be this year, other than a participant, but as the convergence community. But what a fantastic opportunity. People can watch that movie on their own now that you've made it available. Bless you for that. But being able to have an after talk conversation with you, Amat, and possibly you as well, Brian, would be fantastic. Yeah.
You would both be honored.
In your presentations, do you bring in like the mystics, like isn't it Teilhard de Chardin? With the noosphere, wasn't he one of the first to use that? I'm just interested in the mystics coming in.
I mean, so here's the thing, I'm writing this chapter on group consciousness, and it's been like 4 months, because every time I'm, got a little bit further, there's another aha that says, okay, this shifts. But, we really need to, on a serious level, when I introduce this new term that I've never heard before of cardiosphere, it's not just a noosphere, right? Because we can talk about very complex levels of phase conjugation and phase relationship between the brain. Within our brain, we have neural oscillations that are in synchrony in the different aspects of the cortex. But when we're talking about doing that at a group level, right, that is the level of the noosphere. That is the level of telepathy. And when we look at that in terms of the cardiosphere and say, there are people that are tuned in really to that heartbeat of Gaia, of Mother Earth, and even getting together, we tune into our heart. So it really, in understanding Unitive Consciousness, it must be a heart mind, right? Because it has that pulse that says, what is my purpose, right? Why am I alive? And really the answer is for joy and play and evolution, and it's for everything. And that's why when we look at Teilhard de Chardin, and he says, when we learn how to harness the power of love, we'll save the world. And that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Exactly.
In a very, very transparent way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and every year, we get together, students, anyone's invited, but it was started by students of Barbara Marx Hubbard, and she was at, the early ones of our convergences. She was actually our neighbor at Sunrise Ranch. And so anyway.
As was Sherry Herndon.
Yeah. So the thing is that we get together, we're always in circle, and we have a different theme every year. And the theme the first year was "You Are Not Alone," because Barbara asked Bob and I, because we travel the whole country presenting her film, having conscious conversation. And she says, "What are you hearing from the field? What are you hearing from the field?" And we said, people think they're alone. So the theme the first year was "You Are Not Alone." So we had this wonderful gathering of people, including Barbara Marks Hubbard and Neil Donald Walsh. And it was just extraordinary. It's supposed to be a one-off. And at the end, Barbara got an award from humanities team, Spiritual Leadership Award. So people ask, like, what is the co-creators convergence? What do you do? And we've never had a way to describe it. And so somebody finally came and said, it's a okay, how did she say it? How did Marion say it? It's a love fest with a theme, because every year we changed a theme. And as it turns out, this year, our theme is joy. And so it's gonna be joy on the mountaintop, because we're actually going to go. Last year we're in Costa Rica. This year we're going to be in the mountaintop retreat and learning center in Highlands, North Carolina, on top of a mountain. That's where our retreat is. And so, you know, when we've seen that magic happen so many times when we're together. And, you know, we're always looking for, I guess that's what these calls are for. And, you know, the group in general is just keep creating that magic together, you know. And, you know, that's what, you know, I was hearing Barbara a lot through your talk, you know, you're bringing us the new news. And Barbara, every day when we see her at breakfast, she says, she would always say, "I'm new again today." So, so many things that, you know, that you brought up really, you know, tied in with her teachings. And I know I'd love to know about the book that you're writing on Barbara.
It's a chapter that Victoria and Ron Free from their book on group consciousness. Yeah, the Freemans have this book, and I'm with Sherry and Juan Carlos Caeten, who of course is another one that is known Barbara. You know, we're putting our heart minds together to come up with something, but you know, it's this, right? I think that there's a surrender to it, and there's a level of peace, and just knowing that we're doing it, right? It's already being done. And I'm always seemingly rushing around and doing this, that, or the other thing. But at this moment, because, you know, I haven't talked about any of the stuff really in at least the last year and a half. Maybe I've shared some things that I do in terms of semantic mapping and that, but this is really representing something different. And I hope that, you know, even some of the nuances of when you see, again, sort of that structure of the universe at the smallest level of all of those sort of spherical or tetrahedral units coming together, it forms that 12 around the one. So the model that Barbara has of that 12 around the one is that kind of reoccurring fractal pattern where I take anything and then I can kind of understand it with those types of coordinates.
Wonderful. Does anyone else want to jump in here to the conversation? Okay, Carol.
Oh, Carol Sue.
Hi, you know, I wanted to say something about Barbara Marks Hubbard. She actually affected my life quite a bit. And I have a lot of appreciation for her, and I did get a chance to tell her. And that is, I was walking across the street one day, and I had headphones listening to a cassette of Barbara. And it said that 144,000 people will come together and change the world. And tears started rolling down my eyes because I realized this weight just lifted right off my shoulder. And I thought, I don't have to do it alone. I don't have to do it alone. You know, and that was just beautiful. But that's not really the only thing. I was at a party, and my husband took a book off the shelf, and he was bored. So he started reading her book. And in the very foreword, it said, "Men love like an arrow." You know, the straight, and women love like an umbrella. You know, they love their children, they love their husband, they love their friends, they love everybody. And they said, if men could love women like if men could love the way a woman loves, that would change the world. Well, my husband took that on, and he tried to love like a woman.
Awesome.
I'll
Yeah.
say a quick note, you say 144,000. Well, I'm looking out and I see at least 18 of them here. Not including the non-local beings that are dropped in.
Yeah.
But these are not just stories, right? When we look back to our ancestors and they tell these things, the number itself is embedded in the fractal spiral harmonics of the universe. So, we say 144,000, in Ama's movie, we talk about, and I didn't mention spiral dynamics for this call. There's a million things we could have mentioned, but we have our time, right? And, I like to say we're at the fourth tier or the rainbow tier where, the language I'm speaking with you is the language that I believe that we all hold in truth, in resonance in our hearts. And, that's what the 144,000 is about, is I'm always saying that if 5% of if really like 1% of the population could get to that, even we would be able to have the leverage that would be able to tip the system back into harmonic equilibrium.
And is Amaz film in here somewhere?
Yeah.
Yep. You can see it at harmonia-gaia.com.
Okay,
Yes, I put it in the chat as well.
thank you.
I'll put it in there again. Brian and
So Brian, I have a question for you. For those of us who are wanting to experience in a way that's more familiar or easier, perhaps, how would you say music fits into this idea of unitive consciousness and group awareness?
Right. And I mean, even to take a step back, right? Go out, put your feet on the earth, look up at the sky, swim in the water, hold someone's hand, laugh, eat your favorite food, right? The base experiences that we have
Right.
as a human being is connecting us to the whole. It's just, where are we at when we're having those? Are we distracted when we're doing that task? Is our mind somewhere else? Or are we just present? And are we just feeling that experience and with that deep underlying unity? So, we don't need to make this, be beyond the pale of understanding here, but music really is the universal language, studying religion and spirituality my whole life since 13 years old and trying to explain people's concepts. One day I just stopped talking and, picked up this. Well, not quite this, right? This is the crystal harp here, and it just has these harmonic frequencies. So, from the heart, which has strong notes of C, E, and G, which form a chord, to your liver, to your, to your organs, of all of them, we are always resonating these harmonies. So just, I found that playing people music was able to, on one level, create that physiological response where the shoulders drop, they're feeling relaxed, they're feeling good, and then they can drop into those flow states. And we all know that flow states eventually lead to higher states of consciousness. So people that might, go to one of my sound events with crystal bowls and all kinds of things, is that they'll come afterwards and they'll be like, why did I see all of these colors? And I'll say, well, you have a photoreceptor in your head called the third eye. Or, they'll say, I saw your faces and they were morphing into all these different things. And suddenly we were all one. And I discovered I was one with the universe. And great, because we are, so nothing.
And if I can just, again, I'm just trying to make things a little simpler. I witnessed something when my husband and I were in Costa Rica, and he does not speak Spanish. But it turned out that the night watchman at one of the places that we were staying heard that Richard was trumpet player. And so he went and got his trumpet. And the both of them serenaded us without speaking a word of English or Spanish or anything. They were able to join together because they both knew how to play the trumpet. So it seems to me that one of the things that we can reach children maybe with and build that group awareness or consciousness by, as you have this beautiful crystal harp, giving kids different percussion instruments or something, you know, that they can beat on or whatever and make music together. Do you think that's a good way to start very young in terms of this?
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
what do you give a baby? A rattle.
Exactly, rattle, right, exactly. Well, this has been wonderful. I
We do have
really
another
can't wait
question
to-
that popped in. If
Oh,
Olivia,
good.
if that's okay. Victoria would like, do you have a chart of the frequency of each organ? As you said,
Oh, yeah, right.
So that does exist. You know, there's different ways of looking at it, but I would refer you to the Bioacoustic Institute. So Sherry Edwards in the Bioacoustic Institute, I have seen some of that. And then there's a book by Don Estes called Harmonic Law. Okay, that's Don Estes' Harmonic Law, and he'll go into that as well. Certainly, some of the most interesting areas that I'm working in right now is with bioresonance frequency devices. My friend Huff out in Poland, he has a company called BioRes, and they have a device produced in Poland called the AmScan. And, you know, when you cross correlate that with some of the other bioresonance devices, we can pick up the frequency waves for different types of cancers and so on and so forth. But anyway, if you're interested in learning more about that, again, I think I put my email in the chat, but I can certainly pop it in there again because, you know, part of the understanding of like when you can create any community, right? How do you efficiently give everybody access to the information in a way that works and they're able to apply it? So that's what a lot of Olivia's, you know, line of questioning was. It's like, all right, how do we bring this down to earth? Or probably the best one is how does this grow corn, as the Sunray community would say. And that's what I've had trouble doing, honestly, for about 20 years. You know, I've made something happen, but this is the next turn where I'm done doing it by myself and I want to work with other people to make it happen.
I thought that was really wonderful that you shared some of your co-creators and gave us their information. And so happy that you brought Alma here tonight. And we'd love to have you on a co-creators convergence Thursday night call. That'd be awesome. And let's see, Carol, what did you get?
One little thing about music I thought it'd be just interesting. One of the things that we're aware of is when humanity first began to express itself in caves, they created art. But also what they found are these long bones with perforations in them, and they're a perfect octave. And so I just want to say that when we're talking here about evolutionary leaps of consciousness that we're feeling on the verge of here, that when humanity did that, the first thing that they did is created art and music. And it's a deeply part of how we express ourselves in these harmonic leaps. It's like the way we do it is we entrain to these natural harmonics, and we express ourselves that way.
Beautiful.
Wonderful, Alma. That's beautiful. Yeah.
And I thought, Linda, the opening transformance that you brought in was so beautiful. And that was one of the most beautiful centerings we've ever had. I appreciate your lending that to us and making that part of this.
Well, that's for you to use.
Oh, thank
and
you.
Whenever, because it's part of a global project that belongs to everybody.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I put everything in the chat about getting in touch with
Thank you, Linda.
Linda, and Colors in Motion and Flags of One Family, those people who are interested in learning more about Linda's wonderful Unitive Consciousness art and music making. Linda, did you want to say anything more about your Mondays?
You mean we once a month we have a gathering on the first Monday of each month, and this next one is coming up June 3rd, called Forms from Nature. We use these audio visual meditations, so we're bringing colors in motion into people's lives in a way to take them to another place, to the flow state. And so we're doing it through a Zoom gathering, and then We also have the flags of one family here, which also represent the flow of our humanity and the harmony of our humanity. The flags symbolize or actually become a symbol of our humanness as we work together. And so Olivia just was at a wings making opportunity up in, as she mentioned earlier. And in that opportunity, Olivia, I think that you found the symbolism by making the wings. You begin to recognize the humanity is represented in that process of coming together with other people to make them and then to design them into whatever our passion is. So they're very universal, and it works with color. And actually somebody, I just will leave you with this idea. Somebody seeing this background that I have here is, and many people have talked about how calming it is. How it's just and one person said, love is in the wind.
Yeah, beautiful.
And so that's part of the magic that happens when there's an interactive tool that helps ground a lot of the ideas, Brian, like you were talking about. And so there could be ways that the flags could be woven into some of your work. So
Well,
we'll keep our attention.
I have your
Yes.
flags that you sent me. So I just
Yes.
want to end by saying to Noah and Bob, thank you so much for hosting me. Olivia, thank you for introducing me. Linda, thank you for your lovely piece at the beginning. Julie, thank you. Carol Sue, thank you. Irina, my good friend. Janice, Rich, Michael, Sandra, Kate, Victoria, Robert, thank you guys for staying to the end. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Janet. And thank you all who will see this. And just so much love and gratitude. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
Brian. Thank you,
Thank you,
Emma. Thank you, everyone. Have a pleasant evening.
And
Yes.
say, may peace prevail.
Peace prevail on earth.
Peace prevail on earth.